What's up everybody, Hoang here, and today we have a deck profile for the BT17 Blue Hybrid list. Blue Hybrid is one of the new Tier 1 decks. It's super powerful, it's very low to the ground fast, really solid removal, and it can put a lot of pressure on very quickly. Because it's a hybrid deck, it revolves around evolving over Tamers, which means it's really hard to interact with as well. And this is one of the most hyped decks going into BT17, and I'm sure a lot of people are really excited for it. So, without further ado, let's get started. And the first thing we're going to go over, please note, on the screen, this is BT12 Gigimon, but this is supposed to be BT17. The sim has a bug where it accidentally turns BT17 Gigimon into Mirai for whatever reason, so until that gets fixed, this is BT7 Gigimon. Please do note that. But going into the eggs, the most important eggs are the Koromon. This is really important because you want to have a draw source. Please also note that it's when a card's removed from the opponent's security. Draw one, this means it does trigger off of the Ancient Garurumon ability to bounce security to your opponent's hand. But really, you just need this to constantly have access to draw power. And you may be wondering, why are we playing red base in a blue deck? And the reason for that is because you need access to cards like the Crimson Blaze. Crimson Blaze is so important for the format because of Numemon. Without Crimson Blaze, you're going to struggle very heavily into Numemon, especially if they're running Kokuwamon plus Chikurimon. And really, this deck struggles clearing wide boards because your form of removal is Ancient Garurumon, which is a single target removal, mind you, the lowest level single target removal. So that's why having cards like Crimson Blaze are very important. We played a lot of games with Blue Hybrid across a couple weeks, and Red Base definitely has the best results out of all the different versions. Not to mention, you also get access to Gatsumon, which is really great because this is good in stopping Manzai X, Daiken, or even Doru Grey Inheritable. But yeah, so we're playing Red Base. And yeah, Koromon is our best draw egg to facilitate that. Because we don't have Blue Base, there are a couple things to note. Number one, we do get hurt by Emperor more than Blue Base would, because Blue Base you could just evolve over the level 3 and raising, and you'd be totally fine. But with this red base, you are more prone to getting hurt by Emperor, which on average, like, it's annoying, but it's usually fine because you are playing off your Tamers for the most part. And then you play the one of BT17, mind you, Gigimon. BT17 Gigimon is on swing, pay 1 memory, and pop a Digimon with 3000 or DP or less. And that Gigimon is really important because I can help you remove annoying floodgates like Chikurimon and like Kokuwamon that may be stopping you from making a play. And then, like I said, Gatsumon, really good because Manzai X, Daiken, Doru Grey, a bunch of other different decks that are just very annoying to deal with if you don't have cards like Gatsumon. We have 2 Muchomon. Muchomon is when a red Digimon attacks a player, draw 1. So this is just additional ways for us to generate card advantage. Muchomon plus Koromon is going to draw us 2 cards, which in a deck like Blue Hybrid, you learn very quickly that it's a combo reliant deck because you need both Ancient and Kendo. Kendo, Lobo, and Ancient to get off your combo. So it's a 3-piece combo, not to mention you need a Koji to work with it. So you are going to need these. And do note that sometimes you just neg a lot from hand. Like if you Digicross, for example, you're negging 3 from hand because that doesn't generate you any value and you can't swing with it because you just Digicross with it. So being able to generate additional card value is very important. That's also why we have the Bokomon. Bokomon digging an additional 5 cards and can also refund us memory is really good. Just like I said, consistency is king. And so having Mucho and having Boko lets us get a little further into the deck. 8 Ukos. The name of the game is just Uko spamming. You are a low-end deck that doesn't actually care about your rookie lineups. You're just evolving off of Tamers, so the Ukos are just insane. This Uko lets you get the additional memory so you can avoid getting choked out. This Uko searches for basically your entire deck minus like your options. So both are really pivotal. They speed you up an entire turn because they let you hatch as well. And again, when you're playing off your Tamers, that's super, super good. Play one of Kendo from BT7. This card is like whatever. Being able to swing jamming to guarantee chip is always really cool. But for the most part, it's just another way for us to have an additional name for Lobomon because this Lobomon doesn't actually care what kind of Kendo is underneath. It just cares about having a Kendo. And speaking of Kendo, we have 4 of this one. This Kendo is really good when attacking, draw 1, so that does trigger your Kojis. In general, it's just really good to help try and find those combo pieces, like finding your Lobos or Ancients. And then when attacking, this can evolve into a hybrid from hand, reduce the cost by 1. And generally, you're going to evolve into your Lobomon, who, by the way, if you have Kendo underneath, you can then evolve into Ancient Garurumon for 3 cost. So you're basically going, you're paying 2 for Kendo, swing, draw 1, gain back 1 because of Koji. So you effectively paid 1 for Kendo, and then evolve into Ancient for 3. So you're effectively going to Ancient for 4 cost, which is really, really cheap. Both Kendo and Lobo have draw inheritables to help you refill your hand, and as well as triggering Ancient Garurumon, because Ancient Garurumon triggers whenever either player adds cards to their hand, so both you or your opponent. So that's really fantastic ways to proc the burn. Note that Kendo can also evolve into level 5s, so you can evolve into BT7 Beowulf as well for 0 cost, which is really significant because this means if you don't have the Lobomon, you can use this as a way to kind of bridge into the Ancient Garurumon play. Beowulf is a really strong card. It turns out 1 cost evolution is still super insane, but more importantly, being able to bounce a card level 4 or lower is really pivotal because this means you can set up your Ancient Garurumon much easier. Remember that Ancient Garurumon it can only bounce the lowest level Digimon on the field. So if your opponent plays level 3 or they play a level 4 to eat the bounce, then Ancient Garurumon feels really bad. So that's why cards like Beowulf feel pretty great in that spot because you will be able to remove that threat. And then you also gain jamming from the new Koji, so you're swinging 7k with jamming, which is very safe. Remove the threat, and then Evo Ancient, remove the major body. So Beowulf is good for that. And then for Ancient, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? This card is super insane. Return lowest level both on play and when Digivolving, because it does have a Digicross condition. And then, like I said, your turn, when a card is added to you or your opponent's hand, take the top of your opponent's security and add it to their hand, so effectively a burn 1, similar to BT11 Mirage Galgamon. And then on deletion, you may return 1 Tamer and 1 Hybrid from your trash to your hand, and then play a Tamer from your hand without paying cost. So Lobomon effect, when you warp into the Ancient, at the end of the turn, it will delete itself. So this means you can trigger the Ancient Garurumon's effect via that way. And then set up another Koji because you can grab back 2 pieces, so you can set up another Ancient play on the following turn. So it's really, really annoying, bothersome in that sense. If you're able to keep the Ancient Garurumon on your field, whether you Digicrossed into it or you evolved over a Beowulf, if your opponent tries to pop it, then you can on deletion get back resources. So really, bounce decks are kind of problematic for you, but again, you're faster than the average bounce deck, and then most other decks in the format are deletion-based. DP- is deletion-based, so that also works in Ancient Garurumon's favor. D-Digivolve is very problemsome for you, and the decks that are really good at D-Digivolving this format are Numemon with Waru Manzaimon, as well as Dorumon because of the Dex Dorugora. So do keep that in mind when you're playing this deck. Numemon, if you see Crimson Blaze, you kind of just blow them out of the water. If you don't see Crimson Blaze, it gets pretty difficult, I would say. And Doru is on average, it's a Doru favorite matchup because they have Tamer removal and they can just choke you out of the game. But it takes a lot on the Doru player's end to play well. And the Ancient Garu player, you can kind of just like mindlessly go about your day and hope that they fumble the back. And then for Tamer lineups, 8 Kojis. This Koji is Memory Tamer Koji plus gives jamming. Also gains a memory when a card's added to your hand. So Kendo, add a card to hand, +1 memory. Mucho, +1. Koro, +1. Boko, +1. Beowulf triggers. Swing, add a hybrid card from your source back to your hand, triggers. So being able to spit out memory tamers for cheap or relatively cheap is always a really great thing. And having a memory tamer in comparison to Takuya is definitely a huge buff this deck needed. Because previously you could just choke the deck out, and now that's almost impossible. And then old Koji, you seldomly ever use the ability to tuck 5 because it's not like A, obviously you don't have Magna Garurumon, and B, your inheritables are like what, like draw 1 if you have 7 or less. So like not really that important, but this one, it gives you +1 memory when you add a card to your hand, as well as unblockable. So into decks like Magna X, this is really important because now you can lethal through their 15k blocker. There are plenty of other blocker heavy decks in the format that having unblockable is just really great into. 2 purple mat. This is a tech that a lot of Asia players were doing. The mat, it's a cheap way to get a recurring memory throughout the game. The mat triggers on deletion, so if you swing a Digimon and it dies to security, that's a +1 off of mat. If you do your Lobo warp and then the Digimon dies at the end of the turn, that's a +1 off of mat. So remember that your Ancient Garurumon combo off your Kendo is a 4 memory play because it's 1 cost effectively to go into this, and then it's so it's 1 cost to go into this, and then effectively 3 costs to go into the Ancient. So that's a 4 memory play. So if you're only on the if you're only Koji, and mind you, this is a 2 cost Evo to go into it to begin with. I'm saying it's a 1 cost because you're gaining the 1 from Koji. So effectively, you do need to start your turn at 4 memory to make everything work kind of in your favor. So with Matt, that gives you the perfect memory threshold to like actually achieve that. And again, it's just really cheap, really easy to do. Ancient Garurumon is not color restricted on what type of tamer it can play, so it can also play the Matt and it can play the Louis. Louis is really good. It helps accelerate your game plan. It helps you, if you get this down early enough, it lets you get some counterplay against Emperor. It lets you push damage, and just in general, the passive memory gain you're getting from this is really great. 3 Crimson Blaze. I really think Crimson Blaze is like a mandatory 3 of, to be honest, as having played a lot of Nume into this matchup, Crimson Blaze is really important, denying them from being able to play anything by effect. So stopping Nume X, stopping Manzai X, and then popping their entire board full of floodgates. The best way to counter that as the Nume player, I would definitely say, is trying to keep at most 3 bodies on your board. If your opponent starts at 3 memory and they Crimson Blaze and they go to 0, it's very difficult for them to actually get off their Ancient Warp combo, so do keep that in mind. And the floodgate that does stop the Ancient combo is going to be the I think it's BT10, I want to say. It might be BT8 actually, but it's Kokuamon floodgate. That prevents your opponent from ignoring Digivolution conditions, aka Lobo Warp, so do keep that in mind. Crimson Blaze is really great at that, because you can Crimson Blaze and then you can go into Digicross Ancient, or then you can go your Kendo play. 3 Ancient Guardian Deity. This card is really good. If you've never seen this card before, it's red-blue, but if you have a Digimon, if you have a Digimon with Hybrid or a Tamer, ignore the color condition, which you're almost always going to have that. You may return 1 Digimon with Hybrid or 10 Warrior from your trash to your hand, and then you can play a Digimon with 10 Warrior or a Tamer from your hand with the cost reduced by 4. And then security effect, play 1 Tamer from your hand with an inheritable, and then add this card to your hand. You play a Tamer from hand to trash. So this card is really impactful because it grabs back your key combo pieces if you're trying to fish. It can play your Memory Tamer for effectively 2 cost, but more importantly, Ancient Garurumon has a Digicross condition. The Ancient Garurumon Digicrosses -3 for your Lobo and Kendo, so if you have both, it's -6. So that means you're Digicrossing into Ancient Garurumon for 6 cost. But with the option reducing it by an additional 4, you're then going into an Ancient Garurumon for effectively 4 memory, which, I mean, I don't have to say much. It's a 4 memory level 6 with very little setup required, right? Like with this, you have to swing the Kendo and then have the Lobo and then have the Ancient. Obviously, like that's your 3-piece combo. But with the Ancient option, right, you grab back a piece from trash. So effectively, you only need you're starting off with needing less. Like I guess you need the Ancient option in hand, so that like takes the place of like previously what you may have needed. But you also don't need a Tamer to get the Ancient option off, assuming you have like a Hybrid or something on the board. But like you're always gonna have a Tamer on the board. So I mean, like I guess effectively it's like the same amount of pieces, but like this one lets you grab back a piece and lets you be more specific in what you're setting up, versus you're trying to like raw dog draw into like the warped play. You don't necessarily need 3 Ancient Guardian Deity. I've seen a lot of lists that cut this down to 2, and then they run like a Jet Sylphie. Jet Sylphie is a valid target for the Kendo Garurumon to evolve into, so that's always a really cool thing you can do. It's a heal plus a 1-cost Evo, and then you can grab it back with Ancient Guardian Deity. But I feel like it's cute at most, so it's like it's whatever. Ice Wall is just like the best stall card in the game. It effectively shuts down turns single-handedly, keeps you alive, and sometimes all you need is an extra turn to beat your opponent senselessly. So, it's a 1-off for a reason, right? And then 3 Hammer Spark. Hammer Spark is really good because it lets you manipulate your memory. So in the sense that your opponent can never choke you to a perfect interval if you have Hammer Spark, because they can never predict what interval you may be able to push yourself. So like we previously said, if your opponent chokes you at 3, but then you have Hammer Spark, okay, well now you can do your combo. Okay, well if you have Matt plus Hammer Spark, then you can go to 5 memory effectively, and then you can do your combo. And so really you're doing Kendo Swing, Evo Lobo, Evo Ancient, burn 1, chip for 1, pop, die, and then float back, and then float into a Tamer. And then if you have Matt, you can keep turn, and then do like a lot of like crazy shenanigans with that. This deck is very versatile for the most part. I would say there's a lot of different tech room that you can do. Like for example, you can run BT17 Beowulf. BT17 Beowulf is when digivolving, you may add a card from your source to your hand and then stun a card. That's cute. It stops blockers and whatnot as well. I think the more interesting part is it has the warp condition. Place a Lobo and Kendo from your trash underneath Koji, evolve into this. So like in the later games, if you're like short on pieces, you can use this to go cheat into a 5 for 3 cost and then go Ancient. And then you can also go into Shine Greymon Ruin mode, because if you go Ancient, keep turn on Ancient, and then Evo into Shine, Lobo effect will pop the Ruin mode, and then you inflict minus 10,000 DP onto your opponent for their entire turn, and then you can then like try and like push for game after that, because you might have like additional Tamers set up, and then you can like threaten that way. So that's like really, really annoying as well. The reason why we're not running the Ruin mode is because we wanted to streamline the process. A lot of games you can win without the Ruin mode, and sometimes the Ruin mode is just a dead card in hand. So we're trying to streamline getting off our combo and getting to our win con as much as possible. So that is the goal of this. It's like like as most Hoang Zero lists, this is kind of like the skeleton to work with. It's focused on streamlining the process and having the resources to do it. Like I said, there's a lot of different like techs and tools you can do. You can always swap the blue base as well if you want to abuse Promo Lobo, but again, I do think red base is the best version of this deck, especially with Crimson Blaze. So thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and hope to see you all have success with Blue Hybrid. So peace.